Okay, this is tutorial video 4 for myNewImagePicker, how to write this app. And in this tutorial, we're going to cover dropping images into the screen, images, sprites, SK image nodes, SK sprite nodes that have images on them. So first of all, when the app starts out, you see this screen here. It's got 5 pictures, and you can see they're named myImage1, right? When I click on the second one, myImage2, myImage3, myImage4, and myImage5. They're out of order here because of the way that I dragged them in, but they're named myImage1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. We can use these images then to put onto sprites. Okay? We have 5 more images, or these images came from the images.xc assets, and they're named Andy, Cindy, Dad, Danny, Mike. Take a look back at them on the main storyboard there, and you can see that there's Andy there highlighted here on the left, Cindy here highlighted, Danny highlighted, and so on. Okay, so all the action here happens in the game scene, so let's go right to that section, or to that game scene.m, and to the section where we drop these sprites in. So first of all, in the loop that's provided to us in the sample code, when we create a new Sprite Kit game, there's this touches began loop. And inside that loop, that's where the spaceship gets dropped in. So we're just inside this loop going to create some sprites, some SK sprite nodes that are initialized with SK texture with image, my sprite image 1. And my sprite image 1, my sprite image 2, my sprite image 3, 4, and 5 are the images that we have grabbed from the camera, or they're the images, or either the camera, the library, or the images in the top buttons. In the top buttons, these buttons here. Let's go back right here. Now in this, so they're called my sprite image 1 through 5 in the game scene. Now, in this loop that we create, because I want to have the ability to create all these sprites all with the same name, and we'll pick the sprite number in this switch statement here. Okay, so and then after we pick the sprite number, or the sprite image, we'll then set all the parameters for the sprite that we need to and add it into the scene. Okay, so here we go the first time through the loop, I is equal to 1. And since we're doing the switch on my I, and it's 1, the first sprite is made with my sprite image 1. Okay, now that sprite we first allocate up here, this SK sprite node. And we by default put the first image in there. So really I could actually skip this in the case statement, but we're not going to do that for readability. We have the sprite with my sprite image 1, and then we give it a position, and that position is the location, and that location is the same as in the default app that we're given when we create a Sprite Kit app. We won't go into that. We then give it a physics body, and that physics body is necessary to make that sprite bounce around and participate in this physics simulation where we drop it into the scene. That physics body is a body with a rectangle that is the size of the sprite. So body with rectangle of size sprite dot size. You're using the dot notation to get the size of that sprite. we're gonna give that physics body a mass, and we're gonna be able to multiply that mass by a number to make the sprite heavier or lighter, and that my mass mult is defined up at the top, of this file. We'll jump up there in a moment, along with my restitution. Restitution is how springy the sprite is. If you give the sprite a restitution of 1, it'll want to go back to the location it started out. If you give it a restitution of more than 1, it'll want to go further and be like a super ball. We can look at that. We give the sprite a size, or we want to know the size of the sprite, so that if the sprite's too small, I don't scale it so much. If the sprite's a big sprite, we start out with a big image, it'll scale it down by a factor of 4. If the sprite's not so big, so not 320 pixels wide, it'll scale it down by a factor of 2. We then set a contact bit mask in the physics body. We're not going to go into that in today's tutorial. We tell the sprite to run this action here. We won't go into details here, but we're basically saying we're going to wait for 15 seconds and remove it. So leave that sprite on this, in the scene for 15 seconds. Then we add the sprite to the scene. Emitter node also is going to be something for another another day, so we'll leave that out as well. So that's how we drop those sprites into the scene when the user makes a touch. Now that loop goes from 1 to 5, so that each time the user touches, it's going to drop all 5 sprites into the scene. Okay, let's take a look at that. So if we play and we tap once, you'll see those 5 sprites hit the screen and bounce around. We tap again, you'll see again all 5 drop in. Okay? Now, we're also dropping individual sprites in with these push buttons up top. With this, we'll take a look at that right now. Okay. That's done in a UI segmented controller. We create that segmented controller right in the beginning of the scene when we did move to view. We initialize that segmented controller with some letters, our initials from the name. Right? So Danny, Mike, Andy, Cindy, and Rob. We alloc and init that segmented control and put it into a frame. And whenever the switch changes on the segmented control, we're going to go do this mySwitchChanged method. Okay, so for my control, we're going to add a target to this file, and for the action, mySwitchChanged, we'll do the action mySwitchChanged. We'll see that in a bit, the method. For the control event, that the control value changed. So that's just how a segmented control knows that somebody tapped it, or how we are going to know somebody tapped it is we'll see that value change. Okay, so let's go look at the mySwitchChanged method. And you can see right here, we do a switch on my value. My value is the selected segment index in that UI segmented control. And so if the user presses the first segment, that value will be 0. The second segment, it'll be 1, and so on. So here the user pressed the first segment, which we initialized to DZ up above the button. Here it is. And so we'll drop the sprite named Danny into the scene. Okay, so we give that sprite a position. I'm just going to put it in the screen in the middle of the X, so about the middle of the screen, minus a little bit. I'm going to put it up at the top of the screen, minus a little bit, so just not quite off screen, but almost off screen. We'll scale that sprite. We'll give it a physics body, the same as we did the other image physics body that's made with a rectangle of the size of the sprite, myImageSprite.size. We're going to give this a restitution and make it almost bounce all the way back. This is just by trial and error. We give it a physics, we give the physics body, after we've given it a restitution, we give it a contact test bit mask to use later. That'll help us know what sounds to make when these things collide. We give the sprite a mass by setting its physics body, by sending its physics body the set mass message. And so interesting here, we're using two different ways of assigning values to this object that are both perfectly legal. We can either use dot notation or we can send a message to the object. And we're then going to run myImageSpriteAction, which is defined up here, myImageSpriteAction, and which will let those sprites stay on the screen for about 10 seconds with a range, so from 8.5 to 11.5 seconds, and then remove them. Okay, we do the same thing if the user presses the next button, the next segmented control here, and we drop the sprite named Mike onto the scene. Here we go. And we drop Mike almost at the same place, but offset a little bit. And if you go look here at the next one, we drop him right in the middle, Andy. Right in mid-X, no offset. And we increase the offsets as we drop the rest of the sprites in. Okay, so let's go take a look at that real fast, and then that'll wrap up this tutorial. So here we are in the simulator. We press that first button and we drop the first sprite in. We press the last button and we drop the last sprite in. Here we'll drop a couple more. They'll bounce up and down and disappear if you don't bother them. They're just obeying the rules, the physics rules. And since there's nothing affecting them, they're not going to do much. If you drop a few, well, then they'll start interacting and you'll start seeing some raucous stuff. Okay, thanks for watching.